Hello once again everyone, another week, another video. So today should be a shorter video, at least hopefully. And apologies if I am at a bit of a Dutch angle, my driveway is incredibly sloped, but we're going to be going over the difference between a block and a parry, as per my definition, and things you should consider when using both, because both should be used. So, first off, let's go over the easy one. What is a block? So, a block in general is what I define as just putting the sword between you and whatever's about to hit you. So, someone's going to attack me high, block. Someone's going to attack me from my left, block. Someone's going to attack me from my right, block. Someone's going to attack me from low, block. Right? Now, that's fine. There are times where a block is one of your better options. One of them can be you didn't see the attack coming and you're just deer in the headlights. Yeah, just move the sword in the way. There are other times where you're purposely baiting out something. For example, Zerkow, often they will strike one, and then they'll strike around. That second strike, they're incredibly vulnerable to a counter-strike, so sometimes I will block, get them to do it, and then exploit the second opening. That's where blocks can be very useful, are as one, quick defenses when you're usually dealing with an attack that you've already seen coming, in which case you kind of already have the vor, or as your get out of jail, not free, but get out of jail not terribly banged up card. Now, the tricky thing about blocks is making sure that you are, when you use them, it should be sparing, and two, know that they don't have the advantage of parries, which puts you in a position to launch an attack a little more easily. A block, if we look at it, I'm just moving the sword between me and my opponent, and it can look like a lot of things, but generally it's going to look something like this, one-handed or two-handed. My long edge is facing toward my opponent, long edge is facing toward my opponent. The tip is usually going to be upright, so I'm not extending out, not gaining any sort of reach, so from the side, it's usually going to be kind of curled in. This doesn't afford me any great offensive capability. It's not the worst thing in the world if I want to grapple, but it's still not ideal. Now, the trick about doing a block to make sure that you're not going to get hurt when you do it is, number one, try to avoid it if you can. Because if you start doing parries, you will figure out how to do a block. But the biggest mistake I see people make is they raise their hands too high and end up catching it on the hands or between the hands, whatever, especially on this guy. We'll come back to this in a moment. Now, when it comes to defending things on low, you'll see this guy a lot more, and we'll come back to him because he's an interesting one. But can be defined as a block, a suppression, or even a parry. It just kind of depends on what you do with it. So, talked about blocks, let's talk about parries. Parries is where things get interesting. So, a parry should essentially be an attack back. Okay? So, if someone comes down with a cut at me, I'm going to meet it with a cut of my own. It's a little more directed at their sword, and you'll see that this is essentially the same sort of ending position as though I had cut. That's the idea. My offense and my defense are nearly the same thing. Now, parries are characterized by having your tip extended, your blades at a 45 degree against whatever they've thrown at you. Low, high, even up, right? And it gives me the opportunity to launch a counterattack more easily. Now, is your parry always going to be ideal? No. We can try, but it's never going to be perfectly ideal every time. But the big thing about launching a parry is that the motion is different. Someone throws in a cut, I throw in my parry, I now have a much better chance of going back against them. And if they do something offensive to me, I have a much better chance of following them and launching through whatever I'm going to do. Parries are very offensive. Blocks are just defensive. This is the way I characterize it. Now, there are many different types of parries. There are, for example, these parries that extend and meet our opponent. There are parries that suppress, and that's where we come back to this guy. So, basically, if I know someone is going to cut from below, and I need to smother it, rather than meeting them out here, what I will do is I will step up, I will sink into it, and I will push this down. Now, interesting thing on my sword angle here. If they're cutting from below, my angle is going to be a little more out as opposed to in. I find that if you make it to in, it can sometimes slip around. Out, they're not going anywhere, and then I can work my tip in with a little bit of movement. Same thing when I'm up here. I want to be making this angle out to the side against my opponent. Angles are what's going to save me. The sword is strongest to the side that it points to. So if my tip is over here, when I go to parry, that's just turning into a block. That's a parry. Now, there are other types of parries. There are, for example, hanging parries. Now, hanging parries are kind of a gray area, where it's kind of a block, kind of a parry. We characterize them as parries because they're called parries historically, and also, the simple fact of the matter is, they put you into an offensive position, but rather than doing so with the cut, rather than doing so with a thrust, they do so with the cut. So, this is where we get everybody's favorite chappie, the bogan. Oh yeah. Bogan is a universal sword movement. It exists in every single system, some more than others. Basically what a bogan is it's when a cut is coming from above, shoot your hands out to the side the cut is coming from, catch on the strong, let your weak be a little bit off the side, it slides off, and boom, there's your cut. You can also, if someone is cutting from their right, I can still bogan this way. It's just, it's a little dicier. So, if someone's cutting from their left, I will do my right bogan. If they're cutting from their right, I will do my left bogan. Though, like I said, you can still, with a little bit of practice, do it the other way. This is just the way I like to do it. As a note, I am a little more comfortable doing my left bogan than most people. The reason I am with this is because I fought a lot of left-handers when I was first learning, and so that became my norm. Anyway though, so, big universal thing to remember when doing the bogan. Number one, move with it. It's not that you can't do it standing. We've all seen the HEMA sport fencing posture, boom, 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 boom. The problem is, you're staying in the danger zone. You're staying in the pocket, as we've talked about before. You don't want to be there for that long. It's much better if I move my foot and my arms out to the same side. Now I'm going to bring my back foot around as I cut. And I'm not just stepping out to the side, I can also step forward, or if I need to, slightly backward. So I've got an hourglass of movement on each side of me. You can also do cross steps with it. This is not uncommon. Whatever I need to do. As long as you're moving with it, you're good. Speaking of which, that's what's really the most important thing here, is blocks and parries. Move with them. So, if someone attacks me and I just wasn't ready for it, and I do that, let's look at my body position. Am I structurally sound? Could be worse, but my arms are relatively close to me, even if I extend them out. It's not great. I don't have a lot of defense or offense capability here. If someone works on this side, I'm going to have to take a huge step back while applying pressure. That's not particularly easy to do. Someone cuts me and I wasn't ready for it, right? At the very least, if I step away from where the attack is coming from, even if this is not a great block, and trust me, this is not a great block, I have bought myself time, because as that cut is coming in, and I move away from it, buying all that time, all that energy, all that opportunity to just deal with the very end of their attack as opposed to where it's strong. Anytime someone attacks at me, I am doing my best, and I extend this challenge to you. If the attack comes in, regardless of what it is, move with it. Be it on a block, be it on a parry. Even on a good parry where someone attacks at me, I'm still bringing whatever leg up and into it, like I would with a cut. It really makes a difference. Now you might ask, what about different systems? You can still do this. So, for example, you do backsword. Some will tell you to do the slip with every parry. That is still movement. At the very least, you're moving out of danger. Though you can also use things like the traverse with your parries, right? If I'm on the inside guard, cut comes out, boom! This time I'm more moving into it, but I'm really strong, right? With rapier, or things of that nature. Now this one usually, a little bit less need to move because I'm usually dealing with thrusts. However, most times when a cut comes in, a little bit of offline stepping is in order. So, really what it should be, and another thing about rapier is you can also apply your core a little bit more while being stable. So, oh, here comes that thrust. you're gonna lean into it, you're gonna push it. That's basically movement still. So, all that is to say, good movement will save a bad parry or block. And it's something I highly encourage because usually what I used to say was you had to move on one or the other. You had to move on the parry and then nothing on the riposte, or you had to move, you didn't move on the parry and then you did move on the riposte. Now I advocate people to move on both. If you're just beginning, just moving on one, you have to. You basically have to if you want both to succeed. However, if you want both to succeed a little better, move on both. But otherwise, that's just our brief video for this week. We've pretty much covered a lot of the basic stuff, and I'm really glad that people are still watching this. So, hopefully you're following along at home and it's helping. Next week, we're going to start getting into building combinations, and then things get fun. So, thank you very much for watching. We'll talk about some other techniques another time.